Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you all so much for joining us today on our webinar. We're delighted that you could spend some time with us and talk about Latin America and also what the TCS has to offer in Miami and as a gateway to Latin America. While some of you are still logging on, I'm going to sort of just introduce us all, while just finishing logging on. So my name is Susanna Hardy, and I'm Chief Content Officer at IBT Online. So I'm delighted to be here and to be joined today by my colleague, Ava Mitzi, who is Business Development Manager for Canada and is based in Montreal. And we are really pleased and delighted to be working together with the Trade Commissioner at the Canadian Consulate General, for Matthew Waldron, the Trade Commissioner, and Jean-Pierre Hamel, the Consul and Senior Trade Commissioner at the Canadian Consulate General. They will be introducing themselves and giving more details about the services provided and why Miami provides such an amazing gateway to Latin America. Then perhaps just a quick introduction as well to say we as a company, what IBT is. IBT Online is a private company. We're Canadian and a US company, and we build websites and do online marketing. And we specialize in international markets. We're known for our international reach and ability to do websites in multi-languages and online marketing in that. And we're very proud to have developed something called the Online Global Programs. And these are programs really developed for small mid-cap companies who are looking to grow their business internationally, grow their sales and exports internationally. And that's why we've been partnering with Jean-Pierre and Matthew and looking at ways to develop services and programs for companies. Our agenda today then, just getting right down into it. First, Jean-Pierre and Matthew are going to talk about the TCS services, the locations, the programs offered, the amazing range of services and help that that Canadian exporters can access through them. And then we're going to get on to the online side. First of all, just saying, why we think Canadian exporters should benefit from online business development solutions. Then what are the big picture side of the Latin American business online environment? What are the localized websites, online marketing, a brief word about e-commerce, and then importantly, your takeaways, next steps, and your questions. Please do put questions in the Q&A box. We'll curate the questions and add them at the end. Actually, two questions already come in. Two questions have come in. I can answer them. I'll answer them now. You will be getting a recording of this webinar with the slide deck. So no need to take notes. You can sit back, relax, and take in some information. And we will also be sending you a Canadian Exporters Playbook, which is a fantastic tool as well, a real step-by-step guide as well about exporting. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Jean-Pierre, talk a little bit about Canada's Trade Commissioner Services. Jean-Pierre.
Thank you so much, Susanna. Bonjour, good morning or good afternoon, and buenas tardes. We're the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service. For those who have attended our preliminary broadcast a week ago, I will try not to repeat what we said then, but let's just say that if you're looking at exporting, or if you are already exporting, you're in the right place. And we'd love to work with you, both for the Florida market, but also the theme of today, which is Latin America and the Caribbean. We're very fortunate here in Miami to have access to that, frankly, to the rest of the hemisphere. And we thought that we would give that twist to our series of webinars. So just very quickly, we have 16 offices across the US and across the world. I believe we're now at 160 locations. So this slide there explain a little bit the type of services that we provide to Canadian exporters. We basically offer our network. We also, through our regional offices in Canada, offer some funding to help you access export markets, and finally we have a series of programs one of which is our Canadian Technology Accelerators, particularly in the US, but also in other key markets, where we work with Canadian exporters to not only help them to improve their export offer, but also to tap into new networks, new contacts, and so on. So the next slide explains a little bit where we are and how many locations. And finally, just to very quickly mention that the services that we offer obviously is for economic benefits to Canada, both for exporters, but also we're involved in attracting foreign investors interested in expanding in Canada. So my colleague Matthew will explain a little bit more as far as these programs and funding mechanism are concerned, and then we can come back to questions and answers. Just wanted to mention that although this is in English, we'd be pleased to take questions or comments in French as well. So thank you, and Matthew, the mic is yours.
Bonjour tout le monde. It is good to see you from Miami. A little bit more to talk about what we do and why and some of the funding programs that are there. As you saw on the last part, there's a lot of things that we do. Basically, what I say to summarize is we take the scary out of export development and new markets. We help you get in there, understand if there's a market, if there's a fit, who to talk to, how to start your network. And to back that up, the federal program has something called Can Export, which we're looking at on this slide, which can offer you up to 50% back of your marketing spend up to a total cap, and that's detailed in the slide. But that can be used for things like what we're talking about today, which is localizing your website, translating your materials, finding marketing specialists in your new market area, and developing relationships and even heading to trade shows to sell into that region. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about something different. That Can Export funding, I think we just went over that, so we can go ahead and kick to the next slide too. The International Innovation Program, the CIIP, helps Canadian SMEs find and fund international research and development. This is part of a pocket that we have in there. Also, there's another Canadian group called MITACS, MITACS.ca, if you want to look it up, that does connections between universities and private organizations to help fund paid intern grad students, R&D, and research in between items as well. So if you're in a situation where you're on the cutting edge, bleeding edge, or feel that kind of thing will help work you into the market, we have programs for that as well. Next slide. Out of that TCS business support, we also have something called Canadian Technology Accelerators. These are CTAs that are set in key cities in Asia, Europe, in the US, where they kind of put on an intense combination of boot camp, accelerator, and market introduction service at one time. If you'd like to get a look at those and where you can find them, just look up the Canadian Technology Accelerators and just Google that, and the first thing to come up is the application program and details. We're going to have something on that in retail tech, prop tech, visual creative arts, and several others this year. So it will be worth being plugged in if you want to get a hold of one of those services. Next slide. Out of that ecosystem, we're the federal funding in the top name, but you may not know us at that. You may know us as the agri-food guys, Western Canada, your provincial leads, Invest in Canada, EDC, all of these, but it's all part of the same umbrella. We all work together, and we all share knowledge and try to help push forward on that which is going to make the most impact. As somebody who's not Canadian, who stewards a lot of these dollars, I'm always very impressed about how careful everyone is with it and how effective the end result is. And it's thanks to this kind of network of departments and solid coordination between. Next slide. So connecting with the TCS, if you're looking around and you go, hey, I want to talk to my regional office, right there is your way in. Of course, all our socials are there. Again, this will be in the slide on the other side. It's pretty easy to Google, but there's the heads up for you right there. And I think my last slide's coming up here. Talk a little bit about why we would want to talk about the gateway service. This is a little different. Why come to Florida to go to all these other regions? Miami, South Florida is basically the business capital of Latin America. For many years, while things were unstable, things were settling and markets were developing, flying in and out and setting up in Miami was a way to take advantage of American stability and develop on the other side. So a lot of the service providers, business professionals, channels of communication, sales, and logistics developed out of Miami. You can see some of the documented pieces of how much comes out of here and how much flows, but basically understand that this is the beating heart of business. For example, if you had a meeting between someone in Peru and someone in Rio, they often just fly to Miami because the flights are cheaper and more frequent, and they've got business here anyway. Our banking situation is similar to that of Toronto. Lots of banks, most of them not focused domestically, actually looking outwardly in a lot of cases. So that kind of channel setup is what we're talking about here. Digitalization services, localization services, help on the ground, finding people that are connected to specific communities and specific parts of all of Latin America and the Caribbean are the kind of things you can do here. Not to mention that South Florida is becoming quite a tech hub, quite an innovation hub, and I'm going to discuss that in some of the key regional events on this last slide here. Which include things like coming up next week is Emerge Americas, which was done by a successful family that sold Terramark to Verizon for $1 billion. And instead of buying an island or half a coconut grove, they plowed a lot of that money right back into developing Miami as a tech hub to give back to the community. It's a great show, all levels of things, university tracks, government tracks, VC tracks, lots of pitch. NBC Universal and Telemundo cover it live from the whole thing, and it's part of Tech Week Miami and a whole slew of Tech Month, if you want to look that up. We have the third annual VC LATAM Summit that's going to be going on at the same time. We hope to catch something for that for next year as well. The Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum, FinTech Americas, the world's largest anti-money laundering piece is down here for every reason you would think it is in Miami. But also a great opportunity. C Labs Technology and FinTech. If you want to get into selling into FinTech in the banking and financial services world, great place for that. America's Food and Beverage Show for our food and beverage folks that are there. And on, including things like the Caribbean Infrastructure Summit. There's something here for everyone. If it isn't in Miami, it's probably happening in Orlando. So if you've got any questions about how to use this, how to use that 160 spot network around the globe, please let me know. Please feel free to reach out to us with questions. We'll get you connected into the right people. As I said, we're here to help take these scary out of these stages of things and develop for you and with you a plan to help you succeed abroad. Again, it helps us all in the end, and that's why we're here to do it. I'm going to hand it back over to IBT.
Thank you very much, Matthew and Jean-Pierre. Before we talk more about websites in Latin America, I just wanted to ask, you know, if anyone would like more information about some of these things. You know, there's such a lot of help out there for Canadian companies. Would you like more information? I'm sure that Matthew and Jean-Pierre can send you email or point you in the right direction, as Matthew said, for any events or so on. So, you know, if you'd like to be contacted, if you'd like us to send an email or contact you, please let us know. The survey. Oh, thank you very, very much for your quick click and your responsiveness. That's fantastic. Pretty well 90% of you are replying. That's brilliant. Well done. Thank you. I appreciate that. And a lot of you are asking to be contacted as well, which is great. Thank you very much. I'm going to close that poll. And again, thank you for replying so promptly. Close that poll. And now let's start talking. Oh, here we go. There, closed, I think. Now let's start talking a little bit about the first thing we wanted to talk about really was why do you need online business development solutions? I think, you know, Ava, maybe you could talk us through this a bit, please.
Absolutely, with pleasure. So thank you so much, Susanna, and thank you, Matthew and Jean-Pierre. We talk about, we've gone over a little bit the why of exporting and why Florida is a business hub and a gateway for Latin America and the Caribbean. But I just want to move to the topic of why online and why do Canadian exporters and Canadian companies need online business solutions? Well, the answer is simple, but I'm going to give you a big picture view. We're now 8 billion people on this planet, and over 5 billion of them, that's 63%, are online, and 60% of which, that's 4.7 billion, are using social media. So the internet is truly global, and for Canadian exporters, this is really great news. It's in almost all of your target markets, your customers, your prospects, your leads, your future distributors, your future employees, your suppliers, etc. Everyone your business interacts with, in short, is online, communicating and searching for solutions and searching for your services. So it's a no-brainer that that's where you need to be. The really good news is that people are not just browsing occasionally. The average person now spends 7 hours a day online, of which 2.5 hours for social media. And as we will see in a little bit, this is just even higher in Latin America and the Caribbean. The Latin American and Caribbean markets are extremely reliant on online services, online solutions, and they love social media, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So it leads me to your strategy and how to do selling, or how to sell better. The future of sales is a digital first approach. And so when evaluating your go-to market strategy, first and foremost, you should be online, giving digital solutions. And that means digital solutions to your buyers in Mexico, in the Caribbean, in Central America, etc., so that they can find you. This means creating an omni-channel experience, creating multiple online touch points so that your customer can find you on many different channels, which are all connected, creating a great customer experience so that the customer is always looking for a personalized omni-channel experience, which gives them options to find you, to message you, and communicate on various platforms of their choosing. It means that the future of sales is customer-centric. It's no longer about a cold sales pitch. It's about the customer, and you need to put the customer first. And of course, all three of these trends that we see are interconnected and depend on one another. So for your business to succeed internationally, you need a digital commerce strategy, which is absolutely essential. Companies should be investing in digital technologies and online solutions that improve the buyer's experience. So it's no longer about a sales pitch, it's about social selling, which lends itself to a more personal and more engaging sales methodology. The multi-threaded engagement acknowledges that the customer journey is not predictable and allows sellers to dynamically flex human and digital resources with the constantly changing customer journey, aka an omni-channel experience where your brand is visible on social media and has a curated online presence. So customers want an always-on, personalized omni-channel experience that they can access to their convenience and in their preferred language. And the truth is that the world's best sellers are giving it to them. As Gartner predicts that by 2025, 80% of all interactions in B2B sales will take place in the digital world. So to go back to the big question of the why exporting and why go online, well, it's because your customers are online. The online world can help you connect with your future clients, your employees, your future suppliers, all of whom are searching online for you in their local environment. Effective online business development solutions are essential to helping you be found, be understood, be easy to do business with in your target markets all around the world. And now that we've established the why, and we know that it's essential, let's dive into how this plays out in Latin America and how this plays out in the Caribbean market specifically.
Thanks very much, Ava. That's terrific. Right, let's as Ava said, let's dive into Latin America. Now, we're obviously we're involved in the online side of things, but I think it's important to put out a couple of big stats for Latin America and the Caribbean that we find affects the way people do business there online. The first is that it's large. Don't underestimate the size of Latin America and the complexity of it. So, just geographically, it's 1.5 times the size of Canada. So there's a lot of logistics that go into it, and a lot of regional variations. As Ava said, the importance of online, So, makes things possible. And the internet is obviously the big enabler for Latin America, with an average of 70% online. Although there is quite a big difference of digital speed, but for the big markets, they're very much plugged in, as we'll see. The big characteristic as well for the online world is this notion of mobile first. We call these markets mobile first because most people there have first went onto the internet and used the internet through their mobile phone, smartphones, rather than a PC. Mobile first markets tend to be very reactive, very techy, very sociable. So, and we'll show this some examples later about when you do marketing or when you're doing reach outs and so on. People in Latin America will respond. They're not at all sort of, like reserved Brits or Canadians who say, oh, perhaps not, I don't want to get involved. No, Latin Americans will respond to your post on Facebook or whatever. Business, B2B and B2C. Marketing is relatively cheap. Ad spend goes a long way. And e-commerce is also very fast developing that. Another way of looking at that mobile first side is mobile connectivity. The average in North America and South America is 112%. So there's more mobile phones than people, as it were. So that just sort of gives you an idea of the importance of the mobile phone. And again, we'll go into this, how that affects both your websites and your online marketing and your engagement with your buyer personas. We're not going to go country by country, but I did want to maybe give you one or two highlights. The first port of call that most Canadian companies, and the biggest market for most Canadian companies, is going to be Mexico. Couple of stats to have in the back of your mind when you're doing marketing and websites in Mexico. A third of the population is under the age of 18. So again, very techy, very early adopters, very mobile friendly, and very high responsiveness rate and reactivity rate. In terms of the online stats, if we look at that, a population of 128 million people there, they've got almost as many phones as people. And about nearly 80% of the population are online, and they're online for 8 hours a day. We'll see this a bit later as well. And again, the final stat, 74% of the population are using social media. The big ones that you all know, Facebook, WhatsApp, and so on, are the big users. And in Mexico, businesses use Facebook, WhatsApp, and other things like that. We are talking as well about the Caribbean, so I thought I'd just, it's a very, very diverse place. The total population is 44 million, but that's also, skewed by places like Cuba, which has like 11 million people in Cuba. Haiti has about 9 million, Dominican Republic, 9 million. The biggest market for Canadians, and Matthew, correct me if I get this wrong, but I believe it's Puerto Rico, with sort of 3.3 million people. And again, those same statistics, very high internet user rate of 84% and strong social media rate as well. So again, a very plugged in market for that. So how do your Latin American prospects find you? Ava, why don't you do this one?
Absolutely, with pleasure. So how do they find you? Well, the answer is a localized website, in short. But the question that we get asked all the time is, why can't I use my existing website? Why can't I use my Canada website to go global? Why can't I just add a few Spanish language pages to my Canada website and reach all of Latin America? Well, the answer is simple. It's to do with the search engines. In fact, all search engines, Google, Baidu, Amazon, YouTube, etc. These are all search engines, and they are all localized. So what is localized? It means being searcher-centric, and they put the searcher first. So it makes the person searching the #1 priority. And they'll do what is most relevant for them. So Apple, for example, has 132 different country-specific websites. And you can think of Google as not one entity, but as 192 country region specific search engines. So if you are a couple of additional pages, if you just add a couple of additional pages to your website, that's still not highly relevant to your target audience. You're pretty well still 100% invisible. If you're targeting the German market, for example, well, your searcher will be likely to use google.de and search in German. They want to read in German, they want to consume in German, they want to be told about their solutions in German. So they're going to be wanting their measurements in metric, they want to see the currencies in euro, etc. So when you think of search engines like Google, you should think of them as lots of different country-specific localized search engines delivering different results that are hyper relevant to the searcher. So let's just go to a really silly example. This is a search for squeakless dog toys, but you can see that the difference, as we all really needed this during lockdown, but we clearly see the difference between here. This is a Google search result in Halifax, Canada, versus a Google search result in London, the United Kingdom. Same search engine, same words, same language, but as you can see, the results are just so different. So that kind of shows you really the localized approach of the search engines.
I love the example, Eva. Thank you very much. I think that was definitely what we all needed during lockdown. So indeed, if the business model of sort of where the company was at the core, reached out to its customers, just has been upended by the internet, and we are now really much more. The world has become, through the internet, customer centric. Just to give another example about words, and one of the key things is keywords. One of the principal point of your website has to be these keywords, this whole notion of optimizing and search engine optimization. So Eva gave the example of a squeakless dog toy. Here's an example for Latin America, for example, in Mexico and Spain. Same search engine, Google, same language, different keywords. So making sure that your keywords is the right one for your Spanish market if you're going to Latin America. So if you're in the automobile sector, let's say, and so the automobile and cars is a major word for your website, you want to rank for, and you're going to Mexico and you're going to call it a coche, well, only 27% of people in Mexico even look for coche. So you're really, not doing well there. But if you're going to Spain and you're calling it an auto, 9% of people in Spain call it auto, the rest call it coche. So again, making sure that your keywords are really important when you're deciding on your international markets. When we talk about localized websites, there's a lot more that goes into it than translation. Translation is one element. It's one criterion out of 10 criteria that I've listed here on this slide. So it can be about registering your domain names. It can be about adapting design, which kind of CMS platform, regulatory environments are very important, and requirements are very important. So a lot goes into making sure that the search engines, believe your website to be absolutely perfect fit for that local audience. So when we talk about going global, in fact, we're going local. Why don't you maybe give an example of ASI?
Absolutely, 100%. So to better illustrate this and to talk about best practices and to give you an idea of the difference a localized online footprint can really make, I'd like to just quickly introduce you to a client of ours called ASI, and they make abrasive grinding wheels for lots of different industries, including the aviation industry, etc. But ASI were motivated to really break into the Mexico market. They had a distributor in Mexico, but sales were flatlining. They were searching for a solution to support their rep and grow their sales in this market. So we stepped in, we scoped out the Mexico market for them, we researched their competitors, we familiarized ourselves with their brand and their values, etc., and we built them a localized digital footprint best practice .mx website. Within weeks of going live with their .mx website, this website started generating over 10 requests for quote per week. And here are some quotes from Jonathan, the CEO. He said that in the past, our sales involved being face-to-face on the floor with clients, manufacturing facilities, and the way we do business has totally changed today. Our clients want to find us online and they expect to see us there. And that's why website localization is so important. It is the future. So once the localized website was up and running, ASI decided to double down on Mexico, and we designed for them a targeted online marketing strategy, which involved, of course, social media, paid and organic, reporting and analytics, so we can measure the results. The year that we launched in 2021, ASI did more business in Mexico that year than in the past 15 years combined. This is due to the localized online footprint and website and marketing with IBT Online. And as a result, they've had to bring on more production staff, more sales, and are hiring in Mexico to meet the demand and the influx of business. They didn't have to do any layoffs and furloughs during the pandemic. And in fact, they grew by 34% at the time and are still growing in Mexico. So why the localized website? And what is the best practice LATAM and Caribbean website that you need? Well, your website is your best sales rep. It's a curated showcase of your products and services that is operating for you 24/7, which recalls the omni-channel experience that we talked about. It's absolutely crucial, as any leads that you will be making should be able to find you easily, navigate your site, and get a feel for your brand and for your products and services very quickly and effectively. Your first port of call, of course, is that it is 24/7 up and running. It is modifiable, highly adaptable, so that if you have new content, you have new products, you can update it. It should potentially be also e-commerce enabled, but that's really dependent on your products. We are a Shopify partner, so we know we have that expertise in-house. And you should be able to showcase your brand so that your distributors have an online accessible platform in the language that they are selling in. Social media is also hugely important for Latin America and the Caribbean market, as social media is an interactive and dynamic space. Videos and using videos are the perfect digital asset to really capture attention, demonstrate your brand values, and drive the traffic back to your website. Videos will help you boost your conversions and therefore your sales. According to Animato's survey of 500 marketeers, video also have the best return on investment when advertising for their business, but we'll go into social media a little bit later.
Ava, thanks very much. Let's before we do go into more details on this and roadmap some of the online marketing side, again, I'd just like to sort of take a moment and ask people if they have interest again in learning more about websites, localization, what these online global programs are. If you want any information, we can send you some, blogs or emails or point you in that direction for information. Just let us know. We'd be happy to reach out. And again, you're really quick on these things and very responsive. It's lovely to see that. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And we'll, if you want that, we'll get in touch with you if you have an interest. Great. Right. I'm gonna. And again, a great percentage of you voting. Thank you. Right, I'm just going to close this poll now. Here we go. And let's talk a little bit then about the online marketing side. Ava sort of pointed out these websites which act as springboards, and they're really a tremendous tool. If you've got distributors in Latin America, that's probably the best thing you can give them. But what about the online marketing side? I think one of the things we like to do is sort of start with something of your international buyer persona. So who is your prospective buyer in these markets? And it's really important to say, is that Latin America, is that international Latin American buyer persona different from a Canadian one? In what way are they different? How does that buyer persona find me? I know how they find me in Canada, but how do they find me when I'm in Latin America? In what ways are that journey different? So I wanted to give you a sort of a feel for this. L'Oreal, I was quite interested to look at L'Oreal's website. L'Oreal, global company, obviously for hair care and things like that. This is a screenshot of their US website. L'Oreal USA, and L'Oreal think very carefully about all the messaging here. So a group of diverse women, all very engaged, all on PCs and mobile phones on the top floor of a building and so on. That's the image they want to portray. They think very carefully about this. In Mexico, this is L'Oreal Mexico. It's a little bit different. It's a little collegial. There's guys there as well. They're still on the top floor of the business. They're all smiling. All got great hair. It's L'Oreal after all. But they're all huddled together. It's a very different feel to it. Perhaps a bit more relaxed as well. People just wearing T-shirts and things. And then in Chile, again, a little bit different. More vibrant colors. Less people. Again, more collegiate, but someone on their mobile phone, another person on a portable. Perhaps less of a city scene as well. So again, just looking at sort of those, L'Oreal is looking at the buyer personas in each one of those markets and just subtly changing things so that the buyer persona in those markets recognizes themselves in that image. A lot can be done just with imagery. And the point before we dive down into Latin America, I think it's important to remember as well is that online marketing creates digital events, and it's events that drive the buyer's journey. That punctuates these journeys and brings them along the road and builds the trust you need to actually make that purchase, from awareness to consideration to finally the purchase. And online marketing pushes them along or encourages them along that journey. So it's the advantage of the online side is that you can reach the right people with the right message at the right time. Of that. If we're looking at Latin America as a whole, this I think says it all. The blue arrow on this chart, it's way too much stuff on this chart, but the blue arrow is Canada. That's the just daily time spent using social media. Canada is at 1 hour and 45 minutes. The red arrows represent Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina. They're right the way on the other side of that scale. These people use social media in a way which Canadians do not. Businesses will have a business WhatsApp account, and that's how people in Latin America want to contact that business. They don't want to fill out a form, and they don't want to use a telephone. They want to contact your business through your WhatsApp. The chart on the right-hand side, those little circles. The average time spent on the internet in Latin America, 8 hours and 20 minutes. Remember, Ava's slide in the beginning showed 6 hours and 40 minutes for the global average. And using social media, the average 3 hours and 25 minutes. And the global average, I think from Ava's slide, was something like 2 hours. So all the social media side is very good for companies who want to engage with your clients. But there's a big difference between the engagement and conversion. And we find this really, really striking. So here's an example, a Facebook example. It was very much a very similar posting at the same time. One was done in Canada, one was done in Mexico. In Canada, we got over 1,000 engagements, which we were really pleased about. 1,200 engagements, that's great, but then look at Mexico, 20,000, more than 20,000 engagements. Engagements means likes, shares, wow, everything like that. That's the engagement part. They're often called vanity metrics because it's like, whoa, people like my post. So, but then out of that, how many people actually converted into a sale? And here, the yellow and green bar charts are the sale. And you'll see that they're almost the same size in Canada and Mexico. So we know that it takes something like 5 times the level of engagement in Mexico to get the same level of conversion as in Canada. So, these are very different reactions and ways of a buyer persona and a buyer's journey. That buyer's journey is very different in Mexico than it is in Canada. And that's a good sort of example, visual example of it. Quickly now, online marketing, basically the important, always a really crucial part is just aligning your social strategy to your business objectives and making sure they're aligned and properly done. So, if you're looking to build brand awareness, it's very different from looking to, then you want to have, followers and shares and like that. It's very different from conversions or from engagements. So one of the first things is really scoping out exactly what it is you're looking to do, making sure they line up with your corporate one, and then going to a sort of, what's called a SMART method of specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely response. The takeaway in that sense from us is really just making sure that you are reaching the right people at the right time with the right message. So online marketing really does build up that brand awareness and the engagement side for this. And here I've just taken some examples. Well, I hope they're playing. Ava mentioned the importance of video and video marketing. It is really, really, really important in Latin America. It's just incredibly important in Latin America. Very responsive. It's great ROI as well. I'm conscious of time. I'm just going to ask, just before we do quickly also about e-commerce, if any of you want more information on the online marketing side, please let us know, and we'll be very happy to send you some information or point you in the right direction for some videos, some webinars, or anything else that you'd be looking to have there about that. So again, and thank you very much for that quick response for that. Right, let's talk now quickly. Let me close this poll. And let's talk quickly about sort of e-commerce, just briefly. E-commerce is really more and more demanded. It's more and more seen as like, normal. And I don't necessarily mean B2C. B2B is actually larger. And it doesn't always have to, when you think of e-commerce, you think also of always having like a payment gateway. But in many ways, you can build your website without the payment gateway, which just has what's called an order builder, which allows your client to say, okay, what are these things that, put together, I would like these items. Can you give me a quote, or can you tell me about them? And that's also a great way of engaging with your prospective buyers. So when you are thinking about going internationally, and especially into the Latin American markets, think about how your client, your prospects can also engage on the website to say, I'm interested in those products there. Tell me about them. What would the price be if I took those samples there? And that's also, it's not payments enabled, but it's also a type of e-commerce. So think in those sort of broader terms. And again, just those big slides. In this case, the red arrow is Canada. So it shows you the level of of e-commerce. 51% of the population is using weekly e-commerce. The white big bar is worldwide average. But again, all the Latin American countries, almost all of them, are higher than Canada, and certainly Mexico and Chile are right at the top end of the spectrum. So this is a region that likes to shop online, and as I said, not just B2C. E-commerce was obviously very much heightened during the pandemic. It's come off the boil a little bit since then, but it is very much now part of our normal life, including in B2B. And as I keep mentioning B2B commerce, B2B is roughly, it's not always easy to compare the stats, but roughly 3 times the size of B2C. So when we talk about e-commerce and going global, it's really about being relevant to the local buyer. So go global, go local. Again, this notion of localization, and particularly important in the Latin American markets for this. I'm conscious of time. There's quite a few questions have come in. So I'm just going to go straight into the takeaways, next steps, and questions. So takeaways. I think Ava made a good point in the beginning, which is, the world is online. You really need to make sure that your websites and your online marketing strategies are really working hard for you. It's one of the biggest tools you can have. Your prospects, your prospective clients in Mexico, Puerto Rico, Brazil, they will search for you online, and they will check you out online, and they will get their impression of your brand and of you online. So do make sure that they're really working hard for you and fit for purpose. And that the second takeaway therefore is your website can really act like a very hard functioning sales rep. It's as I mentioned, it's the best thing you can possibly give your distributors as well. It means that you control your brand, you control your brand image, but your distributor has a tool to go out and sell your products with in their local language, in their local environment. So really a strong one. And that localization, as I said earlier, there's about 10 criteria that we list as the big criteria for localization. So it's not just about language, it's a lot more. Online strategy, marketing strategy is another takeaway. It is about giving the right message to the right person at the right time. And finally, another takeaway as well, connect with the TCS. They have an amazing, huge array of product, of capabilities, of people, of offices, and experience, and are here to help you grow. If you're looking for information on the online world, please visit our website. We've got tons of stuff on the resources, which you can download for free. And of course, if you want more information on the online global programs, let us know. With that, we're open to questions. And there's a couple that I'm going to just start with, which have come through, which I'm just going to sort of wave out there. The first one, Ava, is for you, which is these videos for Latin America. Do I need to get them translated?
Yes, absolutely. I love this question. I have a background in video production, and we do a lot of video production for our clients that want to go into Latin America and the Caribbean. We always encourage reusing and repurposing content, so it doesn't mean that you have to create new 100%, but using voiceovers and using subtitles is and headers, for example, in your video is a game changer, so that you can create and reuse that content that exists, for example, on your Canadian website, but then make it speak to your Latin American and Caribbean audience. As Susanna has demonstrated, and we always hear so much, Latin America and the Caribbean, they are more social than Canada. So they expect the videos, and they love them. They respond to them. They want to hear from you socially, in a more informal way, and that's how they do their research. So it goes such a long way in Latin America. It has such high return on investment, especially that you don't need to create incredible invest thousands and thousands into your videos. These can be really short, social, to the point, 30-second videos that go on Latin America, that go on Facebook, for example. So Latin America and the Caribbean are both incredibly responsive and vibrant markets when it comes to videos. Yes, to answer the question. Subtitles, okay. Voiceovers, yes.
Thank you very much. There's a couple of other questions that have come in. Jean-Pierre or Matthew, one little question has come in saying, for the contact, I'm a bit confused. Should I be contacting the person in the province or you?
So I can maybe just offer my advice on that. So if you're not yet exporting, we usually suggest that companies contact our regional offices. That was the other slide that we saw, where they can advise you, they can help you to develop an export plan. Now, when you've done that, you already have an export plan, and you have determined what are the markets that you are looking at in priority. That's usually when we get involved directly, where we can assist. So it really depends on where you are in your export sort of history. And just to mention that many Canadian provinces also have similar services. So either way, there's a lot of resources within Canada, and they would usually then connect you with us if it's not already done.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm sort of bouncing around here, but I'm just trying to go through the questions. Another one, just to be found on localized search engines, do we have to host our website on the local server if we do that on the US? The simple answer is yes. You should, but large hosting companies will have global content network solutions. But basically, they need to be hosted locally. Otherwise, one thing, it's a big box that Google will tick to say yes, you're a local website, and two, otherwise you're going to be very slow. And slow means anything longer than 2 seconds these days. Huh? So it's you really need to be hosted locally. But thank you, Richard, for that question. Another question, I think also for perhaps Jean-Pierre and Matthew. The events that you cited in Miami, are those all events that we can access through you, or do I go to the event itself?
I would say that those are ones that we are supporting and we have information on and can support your efforts coming here, is the best way to look at that. In many of these cases, we'll have trade delegations or things going on, so you'll want to be in touch with us, but you're going to want to go check out the show and make sure it's a fit for you first. Okay,
absolutely. Okay, good. And yes, there's a couple of things also asking about, they will all be getting the recording of this webinar and the slide deck. And perhaps also, Ava, you could just mention the Canadian playbook, or Matthew, the Canadian playbook.
100%. Yeah, we've created a great playbook which kind of covers and collates all of this information and all of these resources for Canadian exporters, and you will be receiving it in an email in the next 2 days. And it really is packed full of information. So I don't know, Matthew, if you want to add anything, but it's a great resource for Canadian exporters and really helps outline website localization, demystifying online marketing, the Latin American market, the Caribbean market, what you need to know, and resources and tools available.
Yeah, as we said, we're calling it a playbook because we really want you to pick it up and be ready to take the field. So not to get lost in sports analogies, but it's laid out in a way that this is what I need to know, this is why I need to know it, and this is how I execute it. So hopefully that's useful to you. And as we do each stage in this 3-part webinar, we're going to add on and maybe have a total book at the end. But the nice thing is it's broke into the parts to kind of walk you through your first step, second step, third step to full immersion, use of the gateway, passing through to the stage of where you're directly involved in market.
Great. And just a reminder that there are 2 more webinars coming up in this series on compliance and logistics, and you'll be told about that through emails as well. And a lot of the other questions are quite specific, and I think probably best off if we reply directly to them about things. There's one more perhaps that I can mention about domain names. We mentioned briefly domain names, so an important part of a localized website. It's an important part of your real estate, your online real estate. Most Latin American top-level country domain names are available, so you should be able to get them through your domain name provider, a GoDaddy or a 101 or whoever it is you're buying your domain names from. I hope that answers that question as well. And then I know that Romy has asked quite a long questions about I'm not sure I really understand it. Could I mention that our business helps Canadian companies deliver their products to Latin America? Things. Are you specializing only in Latin America in the Florida office?
Oh, no. This is just one of the programs that we want to show about our market. The Miami offices cover Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands for inquiries for Canadian companies wanting to export to that region. We also help companies from here, of course, go physically set up in Canada. So while we're working with this, we would be happy to know folks that are in Canada, but as potential service providers, experts, and people who can refer people to. But typically my universe where I work with people is helping the connections here make it back to Canada. But we're always happy to know everybody there and help you connect with our people on that side. And maybe next time we want to do an informational webinar like this, we can use you.
Okay, great. Okay, I hope that helped, Robin. Good. We said we'd get you back to your offices within an hour. We appreciate your attending, joining us today, spending your time, taking the time to join us and talk about the TCS services provided by Matthew and Jean-Pierre, and also about website localization and online marketing. Thank you so much for all your questions and your responses as well on the polls. We appreciate all that. And we hope to see you all in the next webinars. And I just wanted to thank my colleague, Ava, for presenting, and especially our great friends, Jean-Pierre and Matthew, for being here with us and sharing us on this journey. Thank you all very much. Happy exporting, and hope to see you all online and offline soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.